Hi, my name is Steve Mast, and I'm the President and Chief Innovation Officer here at Delvinia. Many of you sent me a ton of questions related to the current situation we all face. So we thought, why not pull together some of the smartest and brightest marketing leaders to address these questions? We've started a new series, 3 questions in 3 minutes. You'll hear from CMOs and marketing leaders from some of the biggest brands. I hope this answers some of your questions. Enjoy. So first off, welcome my friends, and thank you very much for agreeing to do this. I know everybody is incredibly busy and stressed these days as well, so we'll make this super quick. The format is going to be, we've got 3 marketing leaders. We're going to address 3 questions, and these questions are questions that are getting asked directly to me and our business as well, so hopefully that'll be insightful. And we're only going to spend 3 minutes on each question. So like I said, this is going to go fast, but I think it'll be pretty insightful as well. So before we get started, why don't we start with a little warm up to get everybody kind of into the mode. Why don't we start with what sort of your typical day looks like now? I know everybody's days have been turned upside down. I hear a lot of stories about 14-hour days, dealing with lots of communication, morning meetings, evening meetings, etc. So why don't we start with what your typical day looks like? And also, instead of me introducing you, why don't you, at the beginning of that, just give me your name, title, what company you work for, real quick, and then just tell me a little bit about your typical day. So why don't we start with you, Rob?
Hi, I'm Rob Asimakopoulos, Chief Marketing Officer at CIBC. A typical day is atypical, although not so much as in the whole day. I guess I get up early, have a bulletproof coffee and a workout, and then get on the horn, pacing and back and forth in front of a computer with headsets on and all that stuff. There's also a nice long walk in the middle of the day, or pardon me, at the end of the day, because getting outside is important for mental health and just kind of overall wellness. But the days are long. A virtual workplace is often a very lengthy, creates a lengthy workday.
Excellent. Thanks, Rob. David, how's your day?
It's different for sure. A lot of the things that Rob just said, they're long days. And by the way, I'm from Green Shield Canada. I lead their digital innovation and brand experience, and marketing and communications is part of that. I would say one of the big differences is I'm writing more than I have normally. Just the sheer volume of both external and internal communication that we're looking at. My team is derisively calling me a working executive now. So I don't know what that says about how they saw me before, but it's all hands on deck. And even with a team of folks dedicated to writing, there's still more to do. And we're all trying to chip in.
Excellent. And Chris, I just got to point out as well, if you haven't had a chance, go over to the Canadian Marketing Association's blog. And Chris posted an absolutely amazing post recently on, I'm going to get the name wrong, Chris, but changing customer needs and how businesses need to deal with it, or how they need to survive. I apologize if I got the name right, but it's an excellent, excellent article. I encourage everybody to read it. So sorry, Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself, and how's your day changed?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So Chris Damper, former CMO at TD and chair of the board of the CMA. And I think my day's a lot like this, a lot of video calls, and to David's point, a lot of writing and a lot of online engagement. And similar to Rob too, I'll walk 2 or 3 times a day to clear the head and have a break. And then hopefully time in the evening with family and connecting with friends and making sure everybody's safe and checking in with loved ones.
Perfect. Again, guys, thank you very much for doing this. So why don't we tackle the questions, and Joanne's going to hit the timer and give us 3 minutes for each one of these questions. So the first one really sort of relates to the fact that Gartner had this recent report out and said that 87% of brands are either delaying or canceling campaigns. Makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm hearing this across the board. Obviously, they're prioritizing what matters. So the big question I have, or the big question that organizations have been coming to us asking is, how are people retooling or adapting their marketing strategy and also the marketing team as well. David mentioned sort of the writing piece, and maybe that's how you're sort of adapting. But the real question is, how are you adapting your marketing strategy and team? So why don't we start with David, actually?
Okay, well, it's an interesting challenge. We are actually in the middle of trying to bring on another marketing manager at this time. And we were very sensitive to the fact that that person was in sort of crisis mode in her current employment and wanted to be patient for her to move over to us. But I think we've come to a conclusion that she's coming in the next month and we need another hand on deck. Let's face it, we've shelved a whole bunch of cool stuff that we had planned for the spring and summer at this point. But we've replaced it with an attempt actually to promote some other brands, to be frank. We had been talking about digital health solutions for a number of years with not a lot of take up. Strangely, during this crisis, there's a lot more interest in digital health. And we're doing our best instead of promoting ourselves, to be promoting some of those companies that have availability for people to call in and get some medical support that they probably aren't going to get in their community right now. So we've sort of tried to pivot and be a concierge for folks to find the things they need right now.
I love that. I love the concierge piece, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you look at organizations that are maybe more ahead of the digital transformation curve. They're definitely ones that are probably going to make it through this in a different way. So, Chris, why don't we turn to you, just in terms of maybe you have some advice or perspective that you can provide in terms of your experience in the past and some of the executive roles that you've been involved with.
Yeah, and in the conversations, the people I'm hearing from, echoing David, it is a reevaluation of priorities. And so what was urgent and top of mind and first thing to do yesterday is no longer the case. And so I really find that people are retooling what's important and where does that priority shift to. And then the second big thing I'm seeing a lot is an openness to share. And so whether that's content, advice, guidance, a perspective, similar to what you're doing today, where you're just willing to put information out in the marketplace to help other businesses. That's what I'm seeing a lot of across the board, a willingness now to say, you know what, we're in this together and let's share a little bit more than we would have in the past.
Yeah, great perspective. Rob, CIBC, and I think all the different banks as well have been very notable in the news, obviously. It seems to be, I'm hearing across the board too, everybody is all hands on deck. I think somebody said that already, but it's interesting how I'm hearing lots of sort of corporate office are now on the front line dealing with customer issues, dealing with all kinds of various different questions. I'm just curious what's your perspective of how your marketing team is evolved or adapting.
Well, there's nothing like a crisis like this to show what you're made of. You know, brands can't go away. They've got to lean in, especially as a large chartered Canadian bank. We have a responsibility to Canadians. What we've been doing, and certainly we've been led by purpose on our side, and we've been looking into that as our North Star, and it has made us evaluate what's most important and lean in. And the first thing is that right now people need support. And so we have retooled, but we have not pulled back from our advertising. We're using it to make sure people get what they need. We have people deploying emails through all hours of the night, every day, and on weekends to make sure people have the information they need to get access to the funds they need to keep their business going
30
and
seconds.
to pay their next mortgage. So the marketing machine is cranked up, and context is important. So you don't advertise travel cards, you advertise dividend cards. You actually advertise features of your banking that help people cope with this crisis, like remote banking. That's our responsibility, and that's what the marketing machine does. And that's what a brand, when you build a brand, you give something first before you expect something back. So we're not pulling back on advertising because we're not making money today. We're keeping going so we can build relationships with our customers.
Great point. So moving on to the second question, there seems to be a tremendous amount of expectations are being set by customers and the general consumer out there as well. Obviously, everybody is trying to find answers, but really there's this expectation or onus that's being put on brands to really help get in the fight. And in fact, Edelman had a global trust barometer study they recently put out. It says 62% of consumers are saying their country won't make it through this without brands playing a critical role in that. So I guess my question is more related to how are you monitoring your customers and responding to them during this time? So it's always critical that marketing is at the forefront of really understanding what customers are thinking and feeling and their behavior. But I'm curious how you're monitoring, reporting, and reacting to the shifts of those customers' experience. So why don't we go the other way? Why don't we start with Rob, and maybe you kind of take us on that path.
Yeah, so a lot of mining of primary and secondary, secondary research, a lot of primary research, daily readouts of our client intakes through our contact centers and our social media, and we consolidate them and try to understand what's on clients' minds today, and then we react according to that. And because it's such a fast-paced environment, we are always watching that. We're always watching what clients are saying, what they're concerned about, what they're speaking about, and using that information to either structure the next email or even structure the next brief. Very simple insights that go into briefs like, look, I changed my life today, and it's frustrating when others around me don't change. And also taking cues from other brands. A lot of brands have said, look, I deliver now. I deliver for free now. You can do curbside pickup. We'll call you. I'll originate your mortgage remotely. Brands are showing the way in many ways. So what you want to do is you want to draw inspiration from those brands and rip off and redeploy on your business where it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something that's really near and dear to my heart right now. I've been tracking many different organizations and how they quickly retooled their organization to get in a fight. And there's so many wonderful examples out there. I know Dyson is getting a lot of play right now about how they've created ventilators in 2 weeks, and they're going to be able to sell them for like $500 or something like that. So, but I do think it's really important that brands do get in the fight. Chris, over to you. Any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, and I love Rob's lean in comment, and that is what I think you're seeing. I think brands have recognized that consumer behavior has fundamentally changed, and how you shopped, how you bought, how you thought about what you were considering to do is different. And I think it will be permanently different. I think that is the go forward. And so it's a reevaluation of what that new kind of model and approach is for people. And so, you gave a shout out to the post I pieced. It was about, leading with purpose, thinking about presence, and presence has changed. It's not good enough to be online only or offline only. You've got to be a combination of both. Brands are thinking about how they reach and communicate with their customers differently as well. I thought the A&W ad was a great example of taking what started as a spokesperson to an ad guy to a guy on a video chat in his conference. 5 years ago, if I had said we're going to run a broadcast campaign spot from your kitchen using your phone to shoot it, you would have said never in a million years. It's one of the most authentic spots that I think we're seeing in the marketplace today. And so I think just thinking about brands need to think about what their consumers are feeling and try to play that back in how they're going to market.
Perfect. David, last word to you on this one.
Okay, so I think I'd echo a lot of the things we just heard from Rob and Chris. I mean, at 2 o'clock every afternoon, we have a meeting with our sales organization talking about sort of their B2B contacts and what is concerning them. We have our call center leader in there with all sorts of data about what people are calling us about, and we have our social media expert in there talking about what people are talking to us about on social media. 3 weeks ago, that meant travel insurance, and we've got people out of the country on March break, and we're not going by the book on our contracts, and how are we going to help those people, support those people, and get them back. 2 weeks ago, as layoffs started and the economy dipped, it was talking to our B2B customers and how can we support them with premium deferrals
30 seconds.
if they can't make those payments like they have in the past. As we've come out of those two sort of immediate real-time crises. Now we are shifting again to a bit what I talked about before, which is digital health. Where can people get some supports that maybe they didn't know enough about before that are out there? And I've seen companies like mine and our competitors even offering some free access to some of those new digital modalities, putting some of our skin in the game so at least people get exposure to this and get immediate access to it.
Yeah, great stuff. It's interesting you're talking about in terms of the standing meetings. I got to tell you, our executive team has never worked better than it has recently, and it's because we're having standing meetings in the morning and the evening, monitoring every aspect of the business, in particular how our customers are reacting, what they're saying, and trying to help. So great points there about all of that. Okay, last question. Should be the easiest question, but I think it's a tougher one, and it's really because I really want you to think about what's one piece of advice that you could give other marketing leaders right now? And I think you've given a lot of great insights and thoughts in some of your commentary already. But if there's one thing that another marketing leader can really draw from, what would that be? So I'm going to start with you, Chris, this time, and then we'll go around the clock from there.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think there's almost an abundance of information out there. For me, it would be authenticity. I think the more authentic you can be and empathetic to the current situation that your customers are in, the more resonant you're going to be with that customer base. And I think it's incumbent on us as leaders and executives in the roles that we have that, most Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people have lost their job. People are out of work. People are struggling. And so authenticity matters in terms of how you stay true to the purpose of what you're trying to achieve and what your customers are looking for. And then I think the last small piece would be look after your team. It is a people business. And I think first and foremost, you got to look after your people and make sure your people are protected and safe. It's hard to do anything else when you don't have a great team behind you. So I would say put your people equally as important as your customers.
Yeah, great point. Great point. David, one piece of advice?
I would really echo a lot of what Chris said. And my biggest learning actually has not been the external stuff, because as I described, we're meeting at 2:00. We've got great inputs on what's happening out there. And I think we're making sensible decisions about what we put out into the marketplace. My reminder in this moment has been to reconnect with my team regularly. I've worked with a lot of these people for a lot of years. I can sort of fall in the trap of taking those relationships for granted. But I'm sitting at home, I'm 52. We've got a house, we can go onto different floors, and I'm being reminded as I talk to some of the folks on my team that there's two of them in an apartment in downtown Toronto, and they're sharing a kitchen table and trying to work together in that, and I can't fathom the electricity and tension that must be there at some point. So we're doing, I think, a good job of checking in regularly, showing each other our faces on Teams, and talking about what's going on amongst all of us. And I probably took that a bit for granted the first week, but now I'm seeing how important it is going on. So I echo Chris's comments on that.
It's interesting, our kind of day one from this, my wife and I sat down and kind of created a little calendar of things for our kids and making sure we had all the things. One of the things we came up with was we need safe spaces in the house. We need spaces where, you cannot go into those spaces. So they've definitely been broken a few times, but I think creating safe spaces in your house is a really important thing. So Rob, last word to you on any advice that you could give marketing leaders.
Yeah, I love that point about staying connected with the team, because people build brands. They don't just build themselves. Yeah. In this red hot moment, though, brands have to bear their soul. Brands and marketers have to resist opportunism and temptation, and brands have to give before they get. General Motors is manufacturing ventilators. Apple is manufacturing face masks. Banks are giving up fees and profits and dropping interest rates to help people in need. You got to give before you get. And right now, what people are looking for is for their brands to give a little, because, on the other side of this crisis, we're going to separate those who were there for them and those who were not. So don't try to sell me $20 hand sanitizer, because I will remember that. Right?
30 seconds.
Yeah, well said. I love the you got to give before you get, and I think that's well put. And you're right. I think brands that take advantage of this situation will be remembered, but not the way they want to be remembered. So I want to first of all thank each and every one of you taking your time out of your very, very busy days. I know this is just crazy times right now. Your insights, advice, and thoughts have been fantastic. I think you've really, really brought to light some of these questions. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Love your guys' passion. Love the fact that you're very people-centric. Again, thank you so much. Again, we're recording this, and check out our COVID-19 resource page. We'll put up the videos there as well, so people can freely download those and watch them, and hopefully they'll get some advice out of it as well. So again, I want to thank you. Stay safe and stay well.